I'd like to welcome to the show director of the film Unhinged, Derrick Borte. How are you today, sir?
Fantastic. Happy to be here.
I really appreciate you coming on the show for me. Before we dive into the film, I like to kind of kick that off with a little bit of a softball. What was the first movie you remember seeing?
Wow. First movie I remember seeing, um, it was probably the double feature of Fistful of Dollars and A Few Dollars More.
I like it. I like it. Uh,
I'm way too young of an age to be seeing those two films, by the way.
well, I remember the first film that I vaguely remember watching as a kid is Philadelphia. Um, and that that kind of film isn't exactly for kids either. So I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure I saw plenty of films before that, but that's just the first one I remember.
Exactly, exactly. And what made you want to get into film?
I was always a film fanatic, and it wasn't until I started going to this art house theater in Norfolk, Virginia, called the Narrow, and watching indie films in the late '80s, early '90s, that I started realizing that you could actually do this. You could actually write and direct your own films, and I think the first film I saw there was Wings of Desire, and that was the first time I heard people sort of talking about writer directors, and indie filmmakers, and all of a sudden it just kind of dawned on me that this is what I'm supposed to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So, Unhinged. After a confrontation with an unstable man at an intersection, a woman becomes the target of his rage. What attracted you to the project initially?
Well, I mean, the script was one that I'd come off this film, American Dreamer. We were getting a lot of incoming, material, and I was reading a lot of material, and this was one that I just couldn't put down, and just double-fisted page turner. Like, I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next, and by the end, I was just kind of like, wow, this would be super challenging and kind of scares the heck out of me, but I'd love to make the movie. And I went in and pitched my take on it to Solstice, and they liked it, and we were, next thing I know, we were going to make a movie together.
Absolutely. Obviously, our main villain is played by Academy Award winner Russell Crowe. What was it like working with him? And then the follow up to that, not only working with him, but directing him in a role we've never really seen out of him before.
Well, I mean, prior to working with Russell, I had a million people kind of, trying to warn me about, what kind of crazy ride I was in for, what kind of trouble I was in for. And I just kind of went at it with an open mind. And I think that I found pretty quickly that as long as I was prepared and on my game, and they're trying to make the best film possible, and as committed as he was, we really clicked and hit it off, and had a great time working together. I mean, he definitely is someone that challenges you to raise your level, raise your level of work to match his, whether you're the prop master, or or makeup, anybody on set. I mean, you've got to kind of raise your frequency to match that of Russell's. He kind of brings that kind of energy to the set, and it was really kind of a priceless experience for me that hopefully I'll get to do again sometime soon. I think hopefully we'll find something else to do again.
Absolutely. There's a few technical things and small things within the film that I really appreciate it. And the first one I want to talk about is that stood out is, obviously we know him as the Man. He had this slow and methodical pace about himself. It kind of reminds you, like, whenever he's walking, kind of reminds you of like a Michael Myers-esque pace to his walking. Was this on purpose?
I think in trying to find this character, Russell and I were trying to find ways to, for an actor to try to find some human connections to something that's kind of relatively inhuman in this character, this guy had kind of lost all of his connection to humanity at that point. He was invisible and felt like his only means of being heard or seen was violence and retribution. And I kind of likened the character to the shark in Jaws. And, in talking with Russell about the shark in Jaws and kind of, when he's kind of operating at a certain pace, a slow pace, slow and deliberate kind of vibe is something that was part of the conversation. That's for sure.
Another thing that I really like, action films, in my opinion, seem sometimes to kind of lack attention to detail. And I feel like in this film, there was more so focused in on little small things. One of the things that I loved about the movie was the use of technology. Is it important for you? I know this is a weird quote. Is it important for you for those attention to detail things and not get kind of mixed up in that prototypical action film that we're kind of used to seeing that kind of has no nonsense?
Well, I mean, I think that you've got a film that relies on some of this technology, so it's got to work. It's got to be correct. When you've got most of Russell and Karen's scenes together, they're not really together. They're communicating over phones. So, trying to make sure that the logic, wasn't flawed was a big deal to me. So, yeah, I mean, those little details were important to me. And, I think that look, suspension of disbelief is a tricky thing, when you're asking people once they're in something to kind of overlook things that are not real. So you want to limit the number of things that they've got to try to kind of, ignore, I guess, for lack of a better word. But, so any details that are relatively important, I feel like you need to get them right.
Absolutely. And that's, like I said, like it's important. Obviously, the use of technology was the big thing within this. Obviously, the vocal point kind of being on your phone and stuff like that. I feel like the dynamic that we had between Rachel and the man, between Russell Crowe and Karen, that was a very solid dynamic. Was that an immediate chemistry? Obviously, like you said, there's a lot of scenes not filmed together, but at the same time, in order to, I think, in my opinion, it's harder to shoot and kind of act whenever you're not face to face with somebody and you're kind of on a phone and stuff like that. So was that dynamic already there whenever you started shooting?
I mean, we had some rehearsal time, and when we were casting the Rachel role, I brought in some actors to read, for callbacks opposite Russell, and Karen was one of them, and just really had kind of I hate to say a great chemistry, because they're not really, they have no chemistry obviously in the film, but they worked well together, and then they were both very generous actors in that. Even on one of their days off, if they were on the opposite end of a phone call, they would both make themselves available to hop on the other end of that call to help the other one out, who was actually on camera that day. So, Karen may have been, out to lunch in New Orleans, and she'd get the call and she'd have to, act out her part from wherever she was around town, and Russell as well, and they were both really generous and wonderful in that way.
So Unhinged was the first film back in theaters after 6 months. I was so excited to see a film in theaters. I feel like that's my place of comfort. It's my place of home. It's my therapy. It's where I get all these things. What was it like in that process, being that first film out the gate?
Well, I was fortunate enough in January, sort of pre-COVID, to do a test screening in LA in a theater with 450 people and play the film, and see what it was like on a big screen with a full, with an audience. And I think that really kind of reaffirmed all of our beliefs that this film really needed to be seen on a big screen in a theater. and then obviously when everything shut down, it the world had other plans for us, and then when Mark Gill had the bold idea to try to fit the film in and really be the first worldwide release post the initial COVID shutdown. I mean, my reaction was excitement, but also concern, because you want to make sure that you're not putting someone in danger to come see your film, and thankfully the studio was working with the theater chains and health departments and all the state governments to ensure that every precaution that could be put in place was implemented. And so like I said, it was exciting, but it was also carried with it a different kind of pressure. And I'm glad people got to see it at the theater, and it seems as though it helped people like you and like myself, get back to that place where we feel comfortable, like you said. And it was a movie that was meant to be seen on a big screen. And I was actually pleasantly surprised to see how well it did at drive-in theaters around North America. I mean, that's really, it always felt like a drive-in movie to me as well. And I'm glad to see that it did really well there.
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. There's certain films, in my opinion, especially whenever it comes out, it's like, oh, is this going to be released on VOD? Is this going to be released on VOD? And to me, it's like, no, I don't. Like, for me, it's like, I'm going to watch it. Obviously, the movie critic side of me is going to watch it. But then the other side of me is like, I really don't want to watch this on my, 50-inch television at my house. I want to feel the seats shake and stuff like that. So I appreciated that. Being able to kind of go back and see a film again. It was very exciting.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that's pretty much the response we got everywhere that it opened, was in general, just sort of, from congratulatory messages to even bigger, just saying, that Solstice really tried to, do what they could to help save theaters, and I think that we'll see what the future holds. But it is really cool to have had the first film that had a major worldwide release after the shutdown.
Absolutely. And the marketing has been was phenomenal from day one. I love that. I wanted to just ask you real quick, what did you think about the whole marketing? The Twitter presence, the social media presence was a lot of fun. Seeing them interact with basically everybody to try to get the awareness, to get the people to go. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, look, the marketing team did a great job. I think the fact that we had actors that were game to try some interesting, kind of unconventional marketing was really cool. I mean, Russell did some things that were, I thought, kind of amazing in terms of just the kind of marketing that I hadn't seen before. And, I was glad to see that the response was positive and that it was all in good fun. And it seemed like for the most part, the response has been very positive to the film, and everything around its release.
Exactly. And now it's released on PVOD, which is very exciting as well, because I can't wait to revisit this film. I'm very excited to watch it again. Now I can enjoy it at the comfort of my house after seeing it in the theaters. You know what I mean? So it's definitely one of those films that warrants repeat viewing, just because it's one of those somewhat no-nonsense films that you can throw on. I will also say that after watching the film, I was terrified to even honk my horn or even merge into a section that I'm not supposed to, because, I was worried that Russell Crowe was going to chase me down. But obviously, you shouldn't be on your phone in traffic anyway, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it definitely has affected me in the way that I conduct myself on the roads as well. And I think it was kind of a running thing among the crew and cast while we were in production, that, just kind of everyone talking about their experiences with road rage, or other people having road rage around them and things like that. And just kind of, it definitely made us all hyper aware of the practice or of the conditions that sort of lead up to it. And I think it definitely had an effect on all of us, and hopefully viewers as well.
Absolutely. And before we go, I like to ask this one last fun question. It's a crazy one, so I'll prefix with the saying that. I want to know, what is your favorite Taylor Swift song?
Oh, man. That's a tough one, man. I got to tell you. The crazy question, as far as the crazy answer goes, I don't know any Taylor Swift songs.
That's perfect. That's the perfect. I get that it's either the people know it or people are like, I have no clue, and I like both sides of it, so it's fun.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I literally haven't. I might recognize her voice if I heard it, but I don't know any songs.
That's fantastic. Derrick, thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate you coming on and talking to me today, and thank you for this film. It was fantastic.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.